Hi and welcome back to Cheeky Crypto. My name is Nick and today guys we're going to be talking about the weekly close position on Bitcoin. Bitcoin's weekly close has been an interesting point of discussion, so I thought it was important that we actually kind of recap on where we are with Bitcoin on that weekly time frame. As I get into this video, if you find it useful and informative, smash that like button. I really do appreciate that. If you're new to the channel, then why not go ahead and subscribe, tap the bell, select all the notifications, and in doing so you will be kept up to date with absolutely everything that we do here at Cheeky Crypto. If you haven't yet joined us in Discord, check it out, linked in the description down below. It's a fantastic community talking crypto 24/7. It's completely free and it is the first place that we go to notify you of what's going on in the crypto space. Let's jump right down into this one though, right? So there's a lot to kind of talk about. Let's try to get through this in a constructed way as possible, because we do have an interesting position that's occurred here on the weekly time frames, and it's interesting for a couple of different fronts. So let's go ahead and jump down into this. I think it might be best to start with this one because this actually shows a lot of the key levels that we kind of are referencing, right? So straight away, one of the things that we need to acknowledge here is that we have moved up a fair chunk, right? So let's go ahead and take a look, right? So from the November lows, we've moved up now 85% on Bitcoin. It's very, very impressive at the amount that Bitcoin has rallied up, right? Now, in previous cycle lows to the initial rally, such as 2019, we saw 342. So we're a little bit short on the historic movements to the upside. With that being said, though, there was something that was really interesting during 2019's ascent to the upside, and where we are right now with this 85% move. The 85% move, unfortunately, isn't really going to be giving us a terribly too much in the way of confidence when I talk about this. And essentially what we're talking about here is this our stochastic RSI from this oversold area at the end of December 2018, right? You can see it right down here at the end of the year. Then we come up into this overbought area, and we're overbought for about 84 days, and we kind of reached the peak actually a little bit longer than that, to be fair. Let me go ahead and just bring this back up here. So you can see we kind of pull back and then push up here a little bit. I'm just going to take it all the way to that point there. It's 119 days if we do that, okay? So 119 days and we reach this kind of peak, and then we start to pull back down again, right? And we're overbought at 100%, and it was a long period of time, about 3 months, right? Now, over where we are right now, we've had this 85% push up on this weekly. We can also see that we've been up here at the moment for about 63 days. And again, we're rocking those really high numbers, 99.4%. Okay, so if we were to kind of look at the history of how much time is spent up in this overbought range, actually we're about average right now. Okay, so there was that larger period of time up here. Okay, and there's also a couple of other larger ones just up here as well, around 91 days. But on average, we're right up in there. So at this point in time, we should start to feel a little bit nervous about where that price action is going, because we've been up in this overbought territory for quite some time. Now, the key thing here is that our stochastic RSI has moved quite fast from the oversold area to the overbought area. Now, this is a problem because that shows lack of momentum. It moves far too fast from oversold to overbought. And that's why we have an 85% move versus a 342% move. So we know that our weekly time frame here, that we aren't really mirroring that of what happened in 2019. I know a lot of people want the bull market to start here, and there are some bullish indicators out there that are kind of indicating that maybe the bull run has started. But it doesn't make sense that we are in that kind of range right now, and for many different reasons. And I talk about this a lot. I'm not going to jump into the on-chain data today, but you know that the whales aren't buying. It's only really retail that are FOMOing in. And so I do kind of question, you know, is an 85% move from oversold to overbought on a weekly time frame bullish or not? Or was the 342% more accurate as to kind of what we're looking for? It's going to be interesting to see nonetheless. But with all that being said, let's jump down into what happened last week, because we did actually see something really interesting, which is the Gaussian channel side of things, right? So as I come into this, we can see that we closed on the 13th of March, week commencing 13th of March here, inside the Gaussian channel. Last week, we found ourselves getting rejected from the midline, the average line here, on the Gaussian channel. Now, it's an unfortunate thing because we don't really have the momentum to push on through it, in my opinion. Now, back in 2019, you can see that we were still pushing up and stayed up in the overbought area whilst we pushed through the Gaussian channel. That is something that could happen here. I'm not going to lie, like it's possible that we do push our way through this Gaussian channel and we're able to kind of, you know, confirm it maybe as a bit more of a bullish market. I'm not convinced on it, but you know, it is there, so we should acknowledge what is in front of our faces, and that is essentially a reasonably bullish indicator, or an indicator that is indicating to us a bullish scenario. And that's because the Gaussian channel here, when we close inside it from the downside to the upside, it has always led us into a bullish market. And obviously Bitcoin's history isn't much, but it's something, right? So we're either going to be looking at this through the lens of, look, forget about the on-chain data, we've closed inside the Gaussian channel, we might find some turbulence from here and there and all that, but it's a bull market now, the bottom's in, that kind of thing. I don't think that's necessarily the way it's going to go, but you know, it's there, so we should acknowledge that it is a positive. So our weekly close position, although it did get rejected from our average midline here in the Gaussian channel, it is still bullish because we closed inside the Gaussian channel, if that makes sense. I am nervous that we're overbought on the weekly time frame, and we are right up there in these kind of ranges of average for the time that is spent up in this overbought range. But that being said, we'll have to see and reflect on what happens over the next kind of few weeks as to whether or not we can push through this Gaussian channel. You've got to bear in mind we never move in straight lines, and there's always going to be some form of retracement. So don't FOMO in. It's actually better to get confirmation of the direction before you actually go ahead and jump on into the market. As I said, we've still got all these key areas that we often talk about. I am looking at 17 to 18k is a nice retest area. That's also a fair value gap from down here. You can see that right in there. So that's an interesting one. And if we have to come down into new lower lows through some black swan events, check out the podcast channel. Then 11,600 to 13,900 seems to be the area that I would like to hold if that is the case. So I'm still looking for whale investors to buy up Bitcoin, and they can't do that until retail investors are selling. And I'm not sure what it's going to take to get retail investors to sell their Bitcoin, but I think the economy is going to make things very, very difficult for those retail investors, specifically if the Fed decide that they're just going to kick the can down and grind this out over a long period of time. That being said, I think the European banks, ECB, have got it right with a 0.5. And they continue to be more aggressive than the US, and I think the US will eventually have to be more aggressive. But you know, it is what it is, and we'll see how it kind of goes. There are some people in the comment sections that are quite hilarious and not fully understanding how these things actually work. But when you print more money, you're basically devaluing your existing money, right? So you're flooding more supply out into the world. Then your dollar is no longer really worth $1, right? And you can look at it through many different lenses, but essentially, you're devaluing your currency by printing more of your currency. So it's not a good solution to just continue to try to print your way out of debt. You're just going to make everyone poorer, at least within your countries. Everyone else's countries are going to be laughing, specifically if they were on the right side of that trade. But you can kind of get the idea. This is something that we saw quite a bit in 2020, with 25% of all US dollars being printed. It may have actually ended up being more than that, but you can kind of see that the inflation is created through the back of oversupply of dollars, and then of course just distributing that incorrectly as well through stimulus checks, and of course a lot of people just have the idea of spending their fiat. A lot of it went into crypto. That's why you saw the bullish market, and a lot of it just ended up flowing right into the wealthy elites. So you saw the rich get richer and the poor get poorer and all that kind of stuff. And now, of course, they're calling on more taxes to pay back all the debts that they have. It's a global thing. I pick on the US probably a tad too much there, but it is a global issue everywhere. So nonetheless, we can see for Bitcoin here, we had this bullish movement to the upside. I'm just not convinced the on-chain data or the economy in general is actually allowing for this to be a bullish market. It could be one of the biggest bull traps in history, and a lot of these indicators that are just historically looking back are actually giving some false flags, in my opinion. But it's going to be interesting to see how it unfolds. We'll go with whatever the data suggests to us, essentially here. So taking a look at it from this point of view, we have these key areas to kind of pull out. Now, also from this area here, you can see the Gaussian channel here closing up here. You can see that we've still got these two fair value gaps, and I do think these are areas that we are likely to kind of come back down into at some point. So that would actually mean, if I throw that Gaussian channel back on, if we have to come into these gaps and fill them out, I say have to, but I have an idea or an inkling that we are going to, then we're going to be outside of this Gaussian channel. That being said, if this is a slow grind out of these highs into these lows, it is possible this Gaussian channel also moves down with us, and actually we never leave the Gaussian channel, right? This is one thing that we need to kind of consider here, is that this comes down nice and steep, and we fill these two fair value gaps out whilst we remain inside the Gaussian channel. It would be very, very interesting if that is the case, because we've had a really quite a long drawn out movement to the downside, and this moving average is laggy, basically meaning that this Gaussian channel is still going to be moving down. So the fact that this Gaussian channel is moving down much steeper than it had done previously is also an indication as to how quick and easy it was for the price action to move back up in there. We should consider that as also an interesting tell here, that if we have this laggy indicator that is only just starting to come on down here, we could see this come down a little bit deeper before we actually get a reversal, meaning that we stay inside the Gaussian channel for a few months before we actually break above it, keeping the Gaussian channel as an indicator of bullish market, but not really necessarily considering where those moving averages are going in the future. And so ultimately, I think from the weekly position, it looks positive right now. If you ignore the RSI and the stochastic RSI and all those, let me actually go ahead and hide that one off. And what I'll do is I'll bring in the relative strength index. Let me find it on here, relative strength index. You can see it right in here. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to, I'm pretty certain I can do it from here, can't I? That one there we go. So we can see here on this weekly time frame, this RSI, the relative strength index, is moving up into the overbought area as well. Okay, so if I kind of reflect on this, you can see that by the time we had peaked, we'd only just gone up into the overbought area, and then it slowly grinds down. So there's still potential move upwards here on our RSI. Let me actually go into the settings on this 1 second. We don't need the moving average. We'll get rid of that. Okay, so you can see right up here, it's 2019 up in this overbought area. We're not quite overbought on the RSI just yet, but if we are on the stochastic RSI right up here, okay? So we've got to kind of consider these two things that are slightly different to each other. So we want to kind of bear in mind one is stochastic based and one is not. But ultimately, it does look like we're trying to push up a fraction more. But at some point, I do feel this has to move back down. Now, from a smart money concepts point of view, we have 𝗕𝗓𝗪𝗓 is right up here at 34 to 38,000. I don't think we'll hit that. And there's a lot of resistance up a little bit higher anyway. 30K is going to be the main one if we can actually get to it. But from smart money concepts, it does look like we have to kind of hit these areas, in my opinion, which means we do have to move down. I think the Gaussian channel will continue moving down with us, and it could take several weeks before this even plays out. But it's going to be an interesting time for Bitcoin and for the altcoins nonetheless. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments below. Do you think that on this next move to the downside, we are going to see those whales and institutional players buying up Bitcoin? Do we see retail investors panic selling? Let me know what your thoughts are down in the comments below, and let me know whether you think we will see, $30,000, $35,000 in the next 3 months. Let me know. Really interested to get everyone's thoughts and opinions on that. And I'll leave it there. If you found it useful and informative, smash the like button. If you're new to the channel, subscribe, and don't forget to join us down in Discord. Until the next one, have a fantastic day.
We are not financial advisors, and none of what we have communicated verbally or in writing here should be considered as financial advice. It is not. Do your own research before investing in any digital asset or affiliate offers, and understand that investing in any crypto is risky. If you do, you need to be prepared to lose your entire investment. This video is for information and entertainment purposes only. All our videos are strictly personal opinions. Please make sure you do your own research and never take our opinions for financial guidance. There are multiple strategies, and not all strategies fit all people. Our videos are not financial advice.